My name is Trevor. I'm Dubsado's product education lead, and today is Dubsado in December, right? Your holiday planning guide. We're going to be talking all about all the ways you can set yourself up for success in Dubsado while hopefully getting yourself a chance to take a break, take a step away from your business, have some time with family and friends, do the things you want to do during the holiday season because, it's something that we don't talk too much about here, right? Most of us here, probably small business owners. So I know that it's probably just you or you and a small team of folks that are just keeping the lights on, keeping things running, but everyone deserves to take a step away and take some time away, maybe go on vacation. And today's webinar is going to be all about setting yourself up to go ahead and take that time back. Obviously, Dubsado does a ton of the heavy lifting as far as saving you time, keeping you from doing too much admin work, but there's even ways here that we're going to talk about today so you can completely disengage if you want to, right? Or as much as you'd like, really, right? We're going to talk about a variety of things like setting up your email signature to include some out of office times if you're going to be taking some time away from your business. We're going to be talking about setting up a holiday inquiry workflow, which can help handle new inquiries that come in while you're gone, for example. We're also going to be talking about updating your scheduler availability if you're somebody that uses the Dubsado scheduler to have your clients book appointments with you. Then we're going to talk about your notification settings in case you want to maybe turn down the number of notifications you're receiving while you're gone. And lastly, we'll talk about a little bit of housekeeping in your account, right? I know we're not quite into the spring cleaning just yet, but the wintertime, the holidays can be a good time to kind of take stock in your Dubsado accounts, see what was working maybe, see what maybe can be cleaned up. That way, when you come back from the holidays, you're ready to go with a nice, fresh, clean, and organized Dubsado account. So we've got quite a wide variety of subjects we're going to talk about today, and can't wait to jump into it with y'all. Like I said, please feel free to throw any questions that you have in the chat. We'll jump on them, either myself or Jelena, but without further ado, we'll go ahead and get going here. All right, so I'm going to start sharing my screen. Cool. If anybody cannot see that, let me know in the chat, but you all should be able to see that just fine. Okay, cool. So here I am, I'm just in my demo accounts. And like I said, first things first, let's talk about emailing. Let's talk about our email signature. So what a lot of y'all probably do is if you have, your external email accounts, you probably set up your out of office reply, right? Your default reply when you're going to be out of office. Because let's say hypothetically, a lot of the stuff we're talking about today is going to assume that you are taking some time for yourself. And again, like I said, I know it's difficult to try to disengage when you're the one running everything, right? Running your own business, but hopefully you're going to be able to take some time for yourself, maybe just a couple of days here or there. But it's important to have that visibility for your clients. Your clients know what to expect, know when you're gone, know when you're going to be coming back so they can receive a reply. You're probably going to set up your email signature in your Gmail, or even, like I said, set up that bounce back in your Gmail, your Office 365. But keep in mind that if somebody's inquiring on your lead capture form, right, they're not sending you an email, so they're not going to see your Google, your Gmail reply out of office. So let's set some things up here in Dubsado for success. That way, if people are using your Dubsado content, they're seeing that same information. So it starts with updating your email signature. So I know a lot of folks who maybe have been using Dubsado for a while probably did this a long time ago and forgot where to go ahead and toggle it. So we're going to go to templates here. We're going to go to canned emails. And then from there, we're going to go ahead and go to signature. Cool. All right. Hang on one sec. I saw something pop up here at the bottom. Oops, not that. All right, I think we're good. Okay. So like I said, if you forgot where to update your canned email signature, you're going to go to canned emails, which isn't necessarily the most intuitive place to think about, hey, where's my email signature? But we're going to go ahead and go to canned emails, go to signature, and then we can click on signature to go ahead and view what our current Dubsado email signature is. Now, of course, I could go ahead and I could go into my email signature generator, which I did, outside of Dubsado, and make a brand new signature for this. But I, of course, could also just simply copy and paste some information maybe from my Google out of office that I've already set up or whatever I like. And I'm just going to throw it here at the bottom just so that's easy for clients to see. And I bolded it, right? So I just added in, let's say in my hypothetical scenario right now, I'm a business owner and I'm going to be out of office from the 20th, which is that Friday before Christmas, to the 5th, right? Which is that Sunday after New Year's. So out of office, the 20th to the 5th. Thank you, Juliana. Yes, if for anybody who's curious, this is being recorded and you all will receive the replay as soon as this is done, a little bit after we're done here, okay? So like I said, hypothetically, I'm going to be out of office from the 20th to the 5th. I'm going to let folks know that. And I'm going to say that emails that are received while I'm out of office are going to be replied to promptly on January 6th. So right when I come back, I'm planning to kind of get to everything that was built up while I was gone. This piece of our process right now, super straightforward. I'm just putting in some straight information into my email signature, and all I have to do is then say save. Super simple, right? So to make sure that we're actually, oops, I could send some stuff out. Cool. So we want to make sure that we're giving our clients that visibility that they know when we're actually gone. But there's one more piece to that, right? Which is we're going to make sure that any email we're sending in Dubsado is actually including our email signature as well, right? So right now I'm in the canned emails, which is exactly where I want to be. And of course, this is my whole list of canned emails. These are a lot of just the default canned emails that come with every Dubsado account. Likely, if you're using Dubsado, you've got some of these defaults in here still. You probably also have typed up some of your own canned emails. But regardless, you might just take some time today to go ahead and click through the ones that you know you use most frequently to make sure that something's in there. So if I just click on this first one here, just as an example, at the very bottom, I want to make sure that this brand.email.template.signature smart field is in this email template, because that is what's going to populate my signature into all my emails, right? Now, of course, you don't have to have your email signature in there if you don't like to, but specifically for the purpose of making sure that clients are aware of when we're out of office, we just went ahead and updated that signature. Let's go ahead and make sure that that smart field exists in our canned emails. That way, whenever we send an email out, it is going to include that out of office times. Of course, it is a bit counterintuitive, right? If you're taking time away from your business, hopefully you're not sending too many emails, right? I know a lot of us maybe a little bit on the workaholic side might send an email here or there, but it is important to let clients know, like, hey, I am out of office, so that way they can expect to reply when you're back. So like I said, you're going to take some time today, go through your canned emails and make sure anything that you know you're using, you actually have that email signature smart field in there. And that's it for the first one. That's the most important thing. The really important thing that I wanted to get answered for a lot of folks, because I know this is a question we've gotten in previous years, is, right, is there existing Gmail or Office out of office messaging going to apply to new clients? And we're going to talk about how to address that right now, because the answer is no, right? When clients were to submit maybe your lead capture form or your public proposal, they're just submitting a form. They're not actually sending you an email, so they're not going to receive that bounce back, right? So the next thing on our list is going to be making a holiday inquiry workflow. That way, anybody who does inquire with you is getting that information, right? Super simple, straightforward. So our workflow that we're going to build today is not going to be super complicated, but there's a couple things we want to actually take note of and make sure we get in there. So we'll talk about that next. But any questions about the signature, please feel free to throw that in the chat. I don't expect there to be too many questions about that. It's pretty straightforward to go ahead and just throw some extra information into your signature. And then on top of that, make sure that that smart field is there. Let me know in the chat. I'll give you guys 1 second. The vast majority of our time today, we're going to be spending talking about this workflow, as well as talking about some of the other things I mentioned at the top there, but wanted to make sure that we're good to go there. Where do you find that shortcut for the signature? Oh, good question, Jen. We can talk about that too. I probably should have mentioned that. So let's say you have an email template and you don't have that smart field in there. You're like, man, I use this email all the time. I actually have been forgetting to include my email signature. If you want to add it back in, right from this page here, right now we're just editing this canned email template. We can go to smart field. We can go to, business. We can go to email signature. If I get rid of that pop-up right there, there we go. So now it's in there. I'll show it one more time. So smart field, business, email signature. It's going to add that signature in there. Obviously, we only need it the one time, otherwise it will duplicate your signature. Cool. No worries, Jen. Cool. I'm happy to help. Thanks for being here, Jen. Sweet. All right. And of course, right, if you're ever in a project, let me just go to a project, for example, as well. Maybe you didn't go to your canned emails straight away, but you're trying to send an email to my client, Rachel, here, for example. Let's go into Rachel real quick. If I'm just sending Rachel a one-off email, right, it already has my email signature in here by default. But let's say it wasn't in there. You could easily just go to Smart Field, business, email signature right here, just the same, to add that signature in there if it wasn't already there. It should be in there by default, but for whatever reason, if the default email that pops up doesn't have it, you can easily add it anytime you have that Smart Field toolbar. Just go to the business category right here and look for email signature anywhere you are sending email. Cool. Okay, so since we are actually here on the projects page, let's talk about the next piece here. So the idea with our holiday inquiry workflow, there's a couple things that I want to talk about on a more logical level, right? If we're trying to make some space for ourselves as business owners and we want to step away from the business, we want to make sure that we're not letting the wheels fall off right while we're gone, but we want to set expectations appropriately. And what we're going to do is basically have an email that sends to our clients when they inquire that gives them the information about how we're out of office and when to expect to reply back. We're going to give them some more information as far as like PDF pricing guide. That way they have something to chew on while they're waiting for you to come back into office. But on top of that, we're actually going to make a new lead status here in Dubsado and have inquiries go into that status. That way, when you come back from your vacation, rested and recharged, anybody that inquired while you were gone is all in one place. It's super easy for you to go down the list and catch up with everybody when you get back. So the first thing we're going to do right now actually is go to customize on this main projects page. We're going to make a brand new project status. And again, if you're someone who's been using Dubsado for a while, maybe you forgot where this was. That's totally okay. That's why we're here. So we're going to customize on that main projects page. We're going to say add status. And this time I'm just going to call this holiday out of office, or holiday inquiries. Actually, is probably a bit more specific. Whatever you like to title it is totally fine. No wrong answers. But I'm going to make this a lead status. And specifically, once we're done with our workflow, I'm going to tell my lead capture form to assign all new projects to that holiday inquiry project status. Cool. So I'm going to say save. And then just for visibility, I'm going to drag this to the very front. That way, when I go back to my projects page, it's the first thing I see here on the left. Cool. Like I said, when I sit down, let's say hypothetically I'm coming back on January 6th at 9 a.m. I sit down at my desk to kind of catch up. I can go to my holiday inquiries here and I'll be able to see all the projects that came in. Now, I'm kind of going a little bit in reverse, right? This is sort of that last piece, and I'll plug this into my lead capture form once we're done with our workflow. So the next piece now is that let's go ahead and actually build that workflow out. So I'm going to go to templates. I'm going to go to workflows. Cool. Now, this is exactly what I'm going to go ahead and build out with y'all. I already have it here just so you can kind of get an idea of what we're doing. It's a very straightforward workflow. We're just sending one email. It's going to have a bunch of information in it as well as a PDF link. I'll show you how to do that. We're going to create a to-do that's going to remind us to follow up with that client. And then optionally, we also can actually start another workflow as soon as we're ready to kind of get back into the swing of things when we come back from out of office. And like I said, totally optional. We'll talk about why that might be at the end of this kind of chunk here. Cool. So all we're going to do right now is I'm just going to recreate this exact workflow with y'all right now so you can see my logic and see what I did here. So I'm going to say add workflow. We're going to go ahead and just call this, holiday inquiries. Cool. So now first action, we're going to say add action. And for a little refresher for anybody who maybe hasn't built a workflow in a while, right? Since this is going to get attached to my lead capture form, I'm going to basically just try to send an email to any clients who submit my lead capture form immediately with this information. So if I click the action dropdown, if I'm not sending any Dubsado content, then I actually want to pick send email. That's all I'm doing. I'm just sending an email with a bunch of information in it, as well as a link to external content, not Dubsado content. Of course, since we're going to be doing a PDF pricing guide, right? That's not a Dubsado form, right? It's just a PDF. And so if you are in the position that actually I was setting up for this webinar where I didn't have a PDF of my pricing guide, you could also pick something like send form if you want to just send your proposal. Now, this is a little bit dicier because sending something like a proposal that has select buttons on it and prices and stuff like that might give your clients the impression that you're just continuing to work through the holidays, which is why we're going to send a PDF instead. It's a little bit of a lower pressure, right? It's more of like a menu, like, hey, take a look at some of this stuff. It's up to you though, right? If you don't have a PDF of your pricing guide, you could definitely do send form instead of send email, but the concept would still apply. You're just sending your out of office times, you're sending the information about when you're going to come back, and you're going to give them something to chew on while you're gone. That's kind of the idea. For our purposes, like I said, I'm going to use send email since I think that's a little bit more on par with what a lot of business owners would do while you're out of office. So we're going to do send email. For this one setting, right? I actually want to leave this on 0 days after all previous action is complete, since in reality, right, I want clients to know pretty much straight away that I'm not available at that moment in time, but I want them to know when I'm coming back, right? Of course, a lot of folks do something like this. They do 1, maybe hour, right, after all previous action is complete at the top of a workflow to add that sort of manual pause in there so it feels a little bit less robotic. But in this case, you're telling your clients honestly, right? Like, hey, I'm not at my desk right now. So I don't really see an issue with having it just be immediate. It's okay if it feels a little bit robotic because in the sense it is, right? We want our system to do that work for us. I don't want to be checking my phone every time, I'm sitting with the holidays with my family and I'm checking my phone to make sure I'm not missing new clients come in. That's the whole point of why we're doing this. So you don't have to do that, right? So 0 days or hours after all previous action is complete is totally fine. Give yourself permission to step away. It's okay. So we'll do 0 days immediately after they first inquire. Now, under the email to send, I already took some time to type up an email with all the information that I have. So I have a canned email here. I'm going to go ahead and pick it from the dropdown. Right now, it's the holiday out of office inquiry response. When I click that in there, it's got all the information that I want to tell my clients who inquire with me while I'm gone. Let's just review real quick. So obviously, I've got my smart field in here. Hi, their client first name, saying I hope this email finds them well. I'm going to be gone from December 20th through January 5th. And then I'm also going to be coming back to reply to emails on January 6th, right? Now, this is the piece that I haven't talked too much about, right? So the idea is I'm going to give them a PDF pricing guide because, I want to say, thank you so much for inquiring, and I don't want to lose their interest, right? So I don't want to not send them anything but my times. They might go, this guy, like, he's gone. I don't know. I'm going to send them this pricing guide because that way it gives them something to look at, to get excited about when you finally come back to sit down at your computer, right? They'll be able to have some idea, a better idea at least, of what your services are. Maybe they'll already know what they want to move forward with you with. It's a really good kind of practice to give them something to kind of chew on, like I said. So we'll talk about how to make this pricing guide in just a second. So basically, that's the only thing I have in this email. It's just some information and a link to my pricing guide. That pricing guide looks like this. This is just a PDF. Now, I'll actually walk you all through how to make a PDF like this. And again, this is not a perfect example of how to make a PDF pricing guide, but I'll show you the quick and dirty way to do it in case you don't have one already. All right. So going back here, we'll go ahead and say apply. And that's our first action. Like I said, this workflow is not super long and convoluted, but let's take a quick pause and let's talk about that pricing guide, like I said. So if I go to templates and then forms, what I did, right, I have my normal proposal here in Dubsado, which is this guy right here. This is my typical 3Dubs design proposal. It's got all the information in here. It's got smart fields for the client's name and email. It's got my packages, so on and so forth. But the idea is if you were to send this proposal, and you totally could, but just giving you options here. If you were to send this proposal to a client when they inquire and you're out of office, they're going to be able to, pick packages that's going to then generate an invoice for them on the back end. In this case, right, I actually have the invoice and the contract turned on, which would then, prompt them to sign that contract and sign an invoice. It might give the client the impression that they are able to move forward with you when you might in reality be gone for another couple of days or even weeks, right? So what I'm going to do is I actually ended up making a copy of this proposal to remove some of those elements to make it a little bit, like I said, lower stress, kind of a lower bar, right? To give clients just like, hey, this is what I'm offering, but I'm not actually asking you to make any decisions right now. That's kind of the concept there. So I made a copy of this proposal and I called it my pricing guide. But what I did is I've removed all of the client-specific smart fields, and I also actually ended up removing the select buttons. I did that on purpose. I just want clients to be able to see what my information is, and I want them to be able to kind of just peruse this at their leisure, but I want them to feel pressure to make a decision just yet. And the idea is once I removed the client-specific smart fields as well as those select buttons, I went and took this proposal, and I went ahead and I applied it to a project. So if I go into one of these projects here, let's go to Shelly. So forms, all I went ahead and did, it's already in here, I can't recall. Nope. I went ahead and I applied this form to a project. And again, you could do this in any project since we're not actually sending anything to your clients. So don't panic if you're inside of someone's actual project, that's okay. I'm gonna go ahead and say open as soon as I apply that proposal. Now I can scroll down here. If I scroll to the bottom of this page here, I can go ahead and click this little button at the bottom, which is download PDF. So I basically took my existing proposal, I removed those smart fields because otherwise it would be populated with, in this case, Shelly's name here at the top, but I want to use this PDF with all of my clients, right? So when I remove anything that would have clients' names and information on it, I remove my select buttons and then I would just save that PDF right there. Now the last piece is once you have that PDF, you would just come back into your templates and then forms, and you'd go ahead and click this up arrow under the questionnaires and select your PDF to go ahead and upload it right there. I've already gone ahead and done that. You can see here in the questionnaires that my PDF right here, 3Dubs Design Pricing Guide PDF, now it's in Dubsado and I can easily throw it into that canned email. Now bear in mind, right, that last piece about uploading your PDF, that's only if you don't use something like Google Drive or Dropbox. The whole concept of re-uploading it back into Dubsado is simply to generate a URL for that PDF. So that part's entirely optional. The key is anything that you want to do with it, as long as it ends up with a live URL, is totally fine because we're just going to make that button in that email to link to it and right there so the clients can click on it. But it can be anywhere you like. It does not have to be in Dubsado, that last piece. It could be anywhere. Cool. Nice. Glad you guys like that. So making sure anybody understood how I kind of got to that place. Because like I said, I know like me, I didn't have a PDF. I know a lot of y'all are wizards out there with making PDFs. Maybe you already have a really sweet PDF pricing guide and this is not relevant to you, but just anybody who didn't have one, that's a quick and easy way to do it. The last thing that I want to mention as well, if you noticed here on this PDF, it does look a little bit funky, right? It's not perfect. There's this big white gap here, and that's actually on purpose in the sense. What I did, in case you're very curious, is I went ahead and went to this copy I made. And I actually added in a little bit of HTML. I know coding can be a touchy subject, right? People are like, oh man, it's really complicated. In this case, it's super simple. I'll show you really quick how to do it. But the idea is I added in a little bit of HTML to insert a page break because I wanted to dictate where this PDF actually cuts off. Before I added the page break in here, this welcome message was on the same page as this pricing guide. And then eventually it kind of cut off weirdly on some of my other pieces. So I just went through, I downloaded one copy and I added in some HTML to basically break this PDF into kind of palatable chunks, making sure all my packages are kind of in one piece, for example. But I'm actually going to go ahead and share some code with y'all in case you want to do this yourself. And like I said, it's really straightforward. I'll actually show you how to do it. So let's just say I hadn't done it yet, and I want to add a page break between this pricing guide piece, and I want to add it between that and this welcome message. So what I would do, so I would scroll down here and go to HTML block. I'm just kind of eyeball where between those two pieces are. Let's just say hypothetically it's there. I can click into this HTML block, and now I'm going to go ahead and get rid of what's in there. That's just saying hello world. And then I'm going to copy and paste this code into it. I'll share it with you all in the chat as well in case you want to do this. Just that. It's a really short little snippet of code, and that's going to tell the system to break the page when a PDF is downloaded. Otherwise, it will not affect the aesthetics of your form, right? You could still use this form as a Dubsado form. No one will even know that HTML is there, but it's going to make it so that when you do download the PDF, it does break the page wherever that code appears. So there was one right there between these two pieces, and it broke it like that. That way, it's not accidentally cutting off any of my text. It might take you a little bit of time if you want to get it just right, so that it's, not lined up a little bit oddly. In this case, right, I'll be cards on the table. There's one piece on here that I was like, man, a little bit annoying, but I couldn't quite get it to go without spending too much time on it, like this little last piece of this background. You might have to play with it a little bit to figure out where that page break should lie, so it doesn't have to kind of cut your image off, but you understand, right? You can do this very quickly if you wanted to, and I think that it works just fine for this case. So if you want to use that code, it is right here. I'm pasting it into the chat right now. Cool. Any questions about that? Let me know. And Lisa, yes, this recording will be available after this. You'll go ahead and get an email about an hour after we're done here with a link to this. Cool. Okay, I know we've spent a good amount of time talking about this pricing guide, but like I said, hopefully that makes sense. At least, like I said, the rationale of like why we're doing the PDF and not just sending a form, or how to set that form up. If there are questions about that, please let me know. But hopefully that all kind of checked out with y'all. Just a nice low barrier for entry, something for your clients to view and see while you're gone. But cool, nice, yeah. And that way, they're excited to work with you when you come back. Now let's continue on with the rest of our workflow. And there's not too much else to talk about as far as that workflow is concerned. So back here under our holiday inquiries, let's continue to build this out. So right now we're sending that email, which, like I said, includes our out of office times. It includes the link to my PDF pricing guide. Let me show you how to make that real quick, actually, since I already had this set up. Let's say you have your canned email, but you don't have the link in there just yet. Now that we have our URL, I'm going to copy that. I can go back in here. I'm going to go to the A formatting options. I'm going to go to insert link or button. You could do a link if you want to just do a hyperlink, or you could do a button. I think the button looks nice. I'm going to paste in that URL. And if you notice here, right, this is just that URL, right? res.cloudinary. That means it's on our servers that you uploaded it to Dubsado. If you had a Dropbox or Google Drive link, you would use that here instead. And then I can go ahead and just call this whatever I like. So I'll say pricing guide. I'll say insert, open link in new tab and say insert. And now I've got that link in there. So really straightforward, just copy, adding one button in here, and you're good to go. Cool. Next thing's next. So let's go ahead and say add another action. And what we're going to do now is, this might be a little bit redundant, right? Especially if you're a fan of doing what I did at the top there, which is making a new project status, right? But I'm actually going to make a to-do, which is just going to remind me for these particular clients that inquire while I'm gone to follow up with them. So it's exactly what it sounds like. We're going to say add an action. I'm going to say create to-do. Now, I'm going to go ahead and look at this when setting specifically. Let me take a look at what Matt said real quick. Yeah, Matt, I'd be happy to share that. Let me think about the best way to do it. So actually, you know what? Let's just do it real quick. Matt was asking if I could share the email copy from this first one here. And this one's pretty generic, but I'm happy to share it. Let's just do this. Actually, for our purposes, I'll get rid of that so paste's a little easier. And I'll just throw it in the chat for anybody that wants it. Apologies, this is going to be a long message, folks, but at least it'll be there. There you go. No worries, Matt. Cool. All right. So yeah, feel free to do whatever you like with that. Totally fine. All right. You got it. Okay. So now, like I said, we're going to go ahead and add ourselves a little to do, which is just going to remind us to follow up with that client, right? Now, 99% of the time when I'm setting up workflows, and if you've attended any of my past workflow webinars, I'm always telling folks to use relative triggers. And that's pretty much true across many of the different areas of Dubsados where you might have a relative or a fixed trigger. This is one of the very few outliers that I'm going to recommend to use a fixed trigger. So, make a note of it. I'm telling somebody to use a fixed trigger, but normally I'm always telling folks to use relative triggers. And that is true, like I said, 99% of the time. But in this case, I only want this to-do to get created when I'm back in office. Otherwise, as soon as somebody inquires and this to-do gets created, if I've forgotten to toggle my notifications, which we're going to talk about in a little bit, I'm going to get an email that says, hey, go do this thing. And it's like when you're unplugging from your business, you're taking time with your family and friends, you don't want to accidentally bother yourself with a to-do, right? So the idea here is we're going to pick a fixed date and time, so long as you know when you're coming back into office. And I know this can be a little bit sticky if you're like, you know what, I'm going to be taking a couple days here and then I'm back at work a little bit and here and there, right? I totally understand that. But this works well if you know, hey, I'm taking a vacation, for example, and I'm gone for a week. In this case, like I said, I'm going to come back on the 6th. So now I'm going to pick a fixed date and time. I'm going to click the calendar icon and we're going to go ahead and grab 6th at 9 a.m. That's when I start work. Say 9 a.m. right there. Cool. So this to-do is now going to get created on the 6th when I'm first back in office at 9 a.m. And this is just going to say something like follow up with And now remember here, whenever we're creating a to-do in a workflow, really handy, I can go to Smart Field, I can go to Clients, and then I can go ahead and say full name. So that's going to automatically populate with the name of that new client. So that way I can easily see on my to-dos who I need to still follow up with, for example. And you can even take it a step further if you like. We can go ahead and say for, and I can say Smart Field, I could say projects, and I could say project title. If you want a little bit more information in there, any and all smart fields that you have in that toolbar will be able to populate here so long as that information exists within the system. Pardon me. Cool. All right, Beth had a question. All right. I have 7 different schedulers for different services. Is there a way to easily edit all the schedulers, or do they each need to be edited individually for times I'm not available? Beth, that's a really good question. And as soon as we're done with this workflow example, that's exactly the next thing we're going to be talking about. So bear with me here. We'll get there in 1 second, Beth, okay? All right, so like I said, I'm just creating myself a little to-do. We have a fixed date and time to trigger when I'm back in office. That's the whole concept here. If you use a relative dates, you might accidentally be reminding yourself a little bit too soon while you're still taking some time. That's kind of the whole concept there. So we'll say apply. All right, last piece here. And again, this piece is what I would consider to be optional, or in reality, you could take this last step and swap it out with the to-do, because like I said, there's a little bit of redundancy here, but it's going to be to taste. It's going to be whatever you think is going to work best for you. But the idea is, you probably already have an existing workflow that you're using on a regular basis. And if this email here is just saying, hey, I'm out of office and here's my pricing guide, you could just basically, when you come back into office, kick off your normal workflow and kind of pick up where you left off like nothing ever happened, right? So we could actually tell this holiday inquiry workflow to go ahead and say add action, and we can tell it to start a workflow. So if I wanted to, I could just tell it to start my normal lead capture flow, right? And the same thing here, another tiny outlier, right? I'm going to say fixed because I don't want this to start until I'm actually back in office. And I want to go ahead and pick that same date and time. We'll say December 6th, and we'll say 9 a.m. That way I know as soon as I sit down to work, right? Anybody who inquired with me is already getting, my regular stuff. Now, of course, you could just leave this instead of fixed. You could do relative, and you could do after all previous actions complete if you want to use that to do. If it's something like this might be probably the safer way to do it, right? After all previous actions complete, we'll say apply. Now what would happen is, right, they're going to receive that email as soon as they inquire. We're going to go ahead and make that to do, right, as soon as you sit down at your desk and you're back from your holiday. And then as soon as you check off that to do, that you've followed up with them, or that you've at least kind of taken a look at what you need to do for that client, then it's going to start that workflow, right? So it's up to you. If you want it to be more automated or less, you might remove this step. You might just go ahead and have that to do and then take it from there manually. Or you might just start a workflow on the day you're back, right? If you don't want to have to follow up with them manually, you could flop those two, those actions, or take one or the other essentially. But just giving you an option for kind of building out a complete workflow that has a little bit more automation in there. But that's the whole concept, right? Giving your clients your information, setting expectations, and then basically making it so that it automatically kind of picks back up or reminds you to pick back up with that client when you're back in office. Cool. All right, Candace had a question. If you wanted to use this for vacation, not holidays, can you just rename this one as you need it, or would it need to make a new one each time? No, Candace, great question. You could totally just rename this. If I click on the title here, I could just say, what'd you say, vacation? So I could say, instead of holiday, I could call this vacation inquiries. Exactly like that. Totally fine. Rename it. And then from there, you just be editing your email to be, I'm out of office in June, right? Whatever it is, or whenever you're taking that trip, and then include your pricing guide. So this could be kind of an evergreen workflow if you're someone that is coming and going frequently. Maybe you travel a lot for work, or maybe you travel a lot for family. That's totally fine. Whatever your situation may be, this kind of workflow can be really handy if you know when you're leaving, know when you're coming back, and you want to just kind of give it a nice little pause to your business while you're gone. Super handy for that, but definitely not specific just to the holidays. Really good question there, Candace. Cool. All right, so now that we've built out our workflows, a couple of the things I want to talk about. One of them would be we need to make sure we go to our lead capture form and plug in this workflow to our lead capture form so it actually does use it. But one thing I do want to talk about as well is, like I said, a lot of y'all probably have an existing workflow that's currently running or something that you just use on a normal basis. And we should take a little bit of time to think about what's going to be happening with that workflow and those folks that have that workflow while you're gone. So to do that the best, I think we go back to templates and workflows. And let's just say hypothetically, that's my lead capture flow. Let's say that this was my main workflow that I'm using all the time. And like I said, we should just take a moment to think about what kind of stuff's gonna be happening while I'm gone if I don't touch this, for example. So if I go to my templates here, I can actually say view, and this is kind of an underutilized area of Dubsado. I think it's pretty handy, but if I say view, it's gonna show me all of the projects that particular workflow is currently applied to. And that's really nifty because now I can see, right, okay, for Shelly, that workflow is complete. I know Shelly is good to go. Don't need to worry about other things being sent out while I'm gone. But for Daniel and for Rachel, they're both active and there's pending actions in here, right? Now, in this case, this is specifically looking for an appointment scheduler, and we're going to talk about our scheduler in a moment here. So that may be kind of a moot point, but let's say there was actions in here that would be scheduled to go out while you're gone, but you want to make sure that nothing does get sent. Really straightforward going down the list. I could just go ahead and pause these. And now I know that nothing's going to get sent. Really super easy to see which people have certain workflows, to pause that workflow. And then when you come back to this page and unpause them if you like. Super straightforward to make sure that if you want to be completely no contact with your business for a couple of days, you can easily pause things and you know that your clients aren't going to be receiving things, because we all know when clients receive stuff, they're liable to respond, right? So we want to make sure at least we're not sending our clients things over the holidays. It's going to give you that space back. Now, of course, you could go into these projects individually and make some bespoke adjustments depending on the action that needs to run. This is a relatively simple example, right? All my projects are in the same phase. They all have the next step is exactly the same. But you might have some projects that are towards the end of a workflow. You might have some projects that are at the beginning of a workflow. So take a little bit of time to think about what's going to be happening for each of your clients. You could totally just go pause all of them and know that nothing's going to get sent. That'd be the easiest catch-all solution. But of course, don't hesitate to make tiny adjustments here and there, because maybe you still do want to send a client a contract while you're out of office, for example. It's entirely up to you. All right. Let me see what other questions we got here. Got a couple more questions. Matt, go ahead and send our team a chat about that. I'm not sure if that's an issue happening in your account there, but I'm not sure I'd be able to answer that question right there. You get the email prompt that takes you to the dashboard. Yeah, Matt, go ahead and send our team a chat about that so we can take a look a little bit more specifically at your exact example, or unless Juliana helps you out. Perfect. Oh, she did. She said exactly that. Perfect. Okay, cool. All right, and Candace was asking, what do you do here? So my screen is frozen. Okay, so just a quick recap for Candace. So she was asking like, okay, maybe you guys missed how to get back to that page. Let's say you wanted to go to your regular workflow and view which projects they're applied to, Candace. You would go ahead and click view here to get to this page. And then from there, I can easily pause, unpause, set active any workflows that I want to. Perfect, Candace. Great, glad you got that. Cool. Okay, so now we've taken a little bit of time to think about our existing workflow. We set up our holiday inquiry workflow. The last piece is going ahead and making it active. And now this is what you would do. Like, let's say, like I said, if I'm leaving on the 20th, this would be on, the afternoon of the 19th. Before I leave the office, I'd go to my forms. I'd go to any active forms that I know are out in the wild. So that could be any and all lead capture forms that you have on there, because you might have more than one, any public proposals, that sort of thing. You'd want to go ahead and make this change on those forms there. Let's just say, for example, it was my social media lead capture form that I wanted to make sure I set up for my holidays, right? Now, I would go ahead and go to the form or the form settings here, and I'd go ahead and pick my holiday inquiry response workflow. And that's vacation inquiries is the one we just made, right? So they're the same workflow. The idea is make sure you pick the correct workflow. And this is something I've made the mistake myself too before, right? I build out an entire workflow and I'm like, great, I did it. Fantastic. And you forgot to plug it into a form. So don't forget to do this last piece. As soon as you're done with this, you can close your laptop and get out of office, go enjoy your family. But make sure you set up your default workflow. And then we did set up that project status. So we're going to go ahead and go to project status here. And I'm going to tell it to go to holiday inquiries. Like I said, that workflow could be a little bit redundant since we're also putting people into the holiday inquiry status, but this really makes sure that you're not missing anybody who comes into your system while you're gone, because they're going to be in that status. They're going to be receiving your out of office email with the pricing guide, and you're going to be getting that to do when you sit down at your desk when you come back from out of office. So really, really, really simple to go ahead and make sure you don't miss a single thing when you come back, and really easy to get back going again. Matt says, I hate how much I relate to that mistake. Yes, we've all done it before. We've all done it before, so it never hurts to have a little bit of a reminder. Okay, cool. That's kind of our spiel on workflows and how to set that up for while you're out of office. And I think now's a good time to take any other questions, or then jump on over to kind of the next phase of our webinar here today. Allison was saying it'd be amazing to have a feature to tell devs when to activate that workflow. Yeah, Allison, I agree. I think that having a couple more places to tell Dubsado to start a workflow would be fantastic, and it might be something we're working on. We'll see. All right, so next piece here, I know that Beth was asking about this, is scheduler availability, since this is a big one. So let's take a little bit of time. So let's go to templates and scheduler. If you are somebody who takes appointments via Dubsado, we'll definitely want to make sure that you are keeping track of when you are available in Dubsado and making sure that you're not allowing yourself to get booked while you're gone, right? Now, this is just a little bit of a refresher because we're not going to be doing anything crazy here on the schedule template other than just editing our availability like normal. And Beth, to answer your question earlier that she was asking, she was saying she's got like 7 different schedulers. Is there a way to update them all at once? Now, short answer is no. There is one thing I want to show you at the end of this that will make it a little bit easier if you have a block of time you're not going to be available, but we'll talk about that in a second. The key that I do want to make sure is clear to everyone is that if you've got multiple schedulers, you would need to go into the what times you available setting and update those times manually for each scheduler. So in this case, like if I was gone on the 20th, I would click on the 20th, I would click the red X to get rid of that slot and say only December 20th, and I could go through the remainder of the days I'm out of office likewise and remove those times. And that's just for this scheduler template. Now, bear in mind as well, right? If clients have this existing scheduled template already, like let's say last week you sent them an invitation to book this discovery call, but they haven't yet booked, that change you're making here is not going to apply to that particular project. So you might take other time and go into the project and update the availability there as well. But I know that's a little bit tedious. So just want to make sure everyone understood, right? We're just clicking the red X to remove times and clicking either only December 23rd or all Mondays to update the availability. And as well, right, if you're going to be gone for a while, don't hesitate to do all Mondays or all whatever day it is, because you can then, when you come back in the new year, you can go ahead and make sure your availability is accurate to when you want to take those times, right? Or take those appointments. I think a lot of times we set something up and then it's running and it's working well enough, but it's kind of like a thorn in your side. Like, man, I hate getting this kind of appointment on Thursdays, but you just keep forgetting to update it. If you just clear out your availability by saying all Mondays or all Tuesdays or, all that, it's giving you a chance to go ahead and make sure something's actually working for you, which we're going to talk about at the end. So don't hesitate to do that as well. It's really easy to do. Come back in here and set that up. But the key is if you're someone like Beth and you've got a lot of sessions active, right? A lot of different schedule templates that you need to make a change to. What might be simpler is this, is instead of updating the actual availability on individual schedule templates or individual templates within projects, we can go to our Dubsado calendar and we can actually utilize that feature there as well. So let's go to the calendar. Right now, I have my own work email connected to my Dubsado account. So all these orange events are coming in from my external calendar. And these events, right, keeping in mind, Dubsado can read the availability setting of your events, right? So for example, you guys see here, I have a doctor's appointment next week, right? I'm busy during that time, so I know that I can't get booked for anything here work-related wise, right? So long as it's actually busy in my Google Calendar, right? So the idea is you could go to your Google Calendar or whatever your external calendar software is and add in an event for you being out of office. As long as it's set to busy and it's importing into Dubsado, then you would not be able to get booked out during that time. So it'd be really straightforward to add in one event, but I can even take it a little bit easier still, right? You don't even have to go into Google Calendar if you don't want to. I'm just gonna go ahead and click on the 20th and I'm gone. I'm gonna say appointments. I'm gonna just go call this out of office. And then I'm gonna set the dates that I'm gone. So I'm gone from the 20th to the 5th. And then I'm gonna go ahead and say busy. Obviously I could make this specifically say the 6th at 9 a.m. if you wanted to, but for our purposes, I'll just say the 12th to the 5th. I can go ahead and say create. Specifically, I'm not assigning that to a project because really this is just a placeholder event. I just added that appointments into my calendar as busy all day. Did I do all day? Let's make sure. All day. There we go. Apologies. All day. I'm going to make sure you do all day. If you go ahead and add this event in there manually in your calendar, whatever date you're gone, the 20th to the 5th, all day is busy. Now nobody can book times while I'm gone. It's super simple. Just add it into Dubsado. And when you come back, you could remove it if you need to, or just kind of let it be. But adding it either in your external calendar or your Dubsado calendar will not let people book you out. That might be a much quicker way to handle your availability as opposed to updating your schedule templates, but it's going to be to taste. It's going to be up to you if you have a bunch of schedule templates or just one, whatever you think makes the most sense for you. Cool. I'm glad that helped, Beth. All right, cool. Sweet. Now, the next thing here, that's really all I wanted to talk about on the scheduler end of things, right? It's just as simple as making sure your times are available. And like I said, make sure you're not accidentally letting people book with you. We don't need to, feel badly like, oh, a client booked with me, I need to take this appointment and it's Christmas Eve. Like, no, man, like take your time away with your family. It's okay. Make sure you set up your availability. I know today's the 11th. Hopefully this is something that you were thinking about maybe at the beginning of the month as well, since it is coming down to it. We're getting pretty close to Christmas now and other holidays as well. So just something good to think about. Any questions in the chat, go ahead and let me know. Okay. All right. Last couple of things I want to talk about today. We're probably not going to go the full hour today. This is all just really good stuff to think about. Like I said, as we're approaching the holidays, we're going to talk about our notification settings, and then we're going to talk about prepping for the new year. So let's go ahead and go to settings. If you've forgotten where your notification settings are, then from there, we're going to go to notifications. And all we're going to be talking about here is, hey, you know what? While you're gone, think to yourself, when and what notifications do I want to get, right? Like what kind of things do I actually still need to see even while I'm unplugging? And so for different people, it's gonna be different things. You might always need to see when a contract is signed. So you might leave your email notifications on, right? A lot of folks love getting that you just got paid email notification as well. So hey, you know what? Totally fine, fair game. Leave the the invoice notifications turned on as well, right? But maybe you don't need to see when someone submitted a form. You can turn that off for the time being. We can also turn off when drafts are submitted, lead capture forms are submitted, since we have that workflow now active, right? We can turn off these appointment schedulers because nobody should be booking appointments, at least while we're gone, at least while we're out of office. You could, leave these on if you want to see folks that booked something for past when you're, back in office, but we'll go ahead and leave those off. For example, just kind of going through making sure that you are turning off any notifications that you really don't need while you're supposed to be unplugging. Keep in mind that these dashboard notifications, those just correlate to the ones here on the bell icon. So no harm, no foul if you leave those turned on. As long as you're not logging into Dubsado, it won't matter at all, right? And again, as soon as I log into Dubsado, all I'm getting is that red dot. So it's not like you get bombarded. The whole idea here is we're just trying to save a little bit of your sanity so your phone's not blowing up while you're trying to enjoy some family time, right? So that's it for the dashboard, or not the dashboard. That's it for the desktop version of Dubsado. But I know a lot of you out there probably have our fantastic mobile app. And let's talk a little bit about the mobile app. And I'm going to try something on stream that I've not done before on a webinar. So bear with me if something goes wrong. But I want to show the mobile app on stream, because if there's people out there who don't have it yet, man, I really, really recommend getting it. And I'm not just saying that because I work for Dubsado. It's actually really cool. I love it. Our team did such a fantastic job developing it. So if you haven't gotten it yet, free on the App Store, go download it. But let's give it a shot. Let's see. Okay. All right. Okay. Please. Yahtzee. All right. Sweet. Okay, cool. So looking at the Dubsado mobile app now, right? This is the exact same brand that we were just in, 3Dubs Design. It is a beautiful application. If you haven't taken any time to kind of look at the mobile app, please do click through. You can see all your emails. We got our projects, we can set up projects. I could do a whole webinar on just the mobile app, and probably should if there's folks out there with questions. But the thing that I want to actually show y'all here is, since on the mobile app, we have push notifications, right? So, your notifications on your phone are going to be working a little bit differently than they would just on your desktop or email. But you might have push notifications turned on your phone, which just means you're getting an actual Dubsado notification whenever somebody's doing a thing, right? Same thing though, while we're unplugging, we want to make sure we're not getting bombarded with phone notifications, right? Which follows you around everywhere. We have our phones on us all the time, right? So let's go to notifications, and we'll go over to the gear icon here at the top. And right, I have push notifications turned on for my contracts. Maybe I don't want push notifications, but I'll just leave the emails turned on. That way, you get a stack of emails and you check them, once a day, something like that, totally fine. But I don't want to see those push notifications. I want to be able to unplug. Likewise, I'm going to leave payments turned on, because who doesn't love getting paid? But then tasks, don't need that, right? Turn that off. So just go through your different notifications here and make sure we turn off the ones we don't need to see as well. The reason it's important to do it in both places is because the push notifications on your desktop is going to go to your computer, as opposed to the push notifications on your phones going to your phone. So we do have to do it and check both places. But just something to think about. What do you actually want to see while you're taking time off? And give yourself the ability to unplug, right? Be lenient on yourself. It's okay. Take some time away. Don't have to stress about it. Turn off those notifications and unplug a little bit. Cool. Yeah, Jamar, I love the app as well. Fantastic. All right. Phone mirroring for the win. Oh, yeah. All right. That's all I wanted to show you here as far as the app is concerned. Let me know in the chat if you guys would love to see a Dubsado mobile app webinar. I'm open to it. Let me know. I'm not sure that there's too much going on the app that would actually be complicated enough for things that people have questions about. I see a lot of yeses though. Okay, well, if you guys have things on the app that you'd love to see me do, please go ahead and send me an email, let us know if there's something specific you want help on, or I can just do a whole webinar on the mobile app, whatever you like. I'm happy to do it, but this is working really well. I like it. Sweet. All right, cool. I guess we're doing one in the future. Let you guys know about that. Okie dokie. We're coming up on the last thing here. The last thing that I want to talk about is prepping your account for the new year. So I'm just going to go ahead and back out of this. I'm not actually going to save these changes. Let's go to the dashboard. So if you're like me, right, end of the year, you've been working hard all year, you probably have a lot of stuff in your Dubsado accounts. And that's okay. That's fantastic. That's exactly what Dubsado is for. But if you have the bandwidth before you go ahead and take your vacation, take your time away with family and friends, and you want to set yourself up for success in the new year, get ahead of that, maybe that New Year's resolution, we can go ahead and clean up some of the things in our Dubsado accounts. Like I said, we're going to take some time to think about what worked and what didn't work. So starting on the dashboard, I think the best place to kind of begin this sort of cleaning out process is to look at our open invoices right here. So you might not even see it anymore. If you first log in every morning, it's probably there all the time. And some people go a little blind to it. But for a lot of people, right, you're on the dashboard and you're like, hey, why does it say I have, $7,200 in open invoices? How did that number even, how am I getting that number? What is that number? Where's that money, right? That's money that should be coming to me. So I'm I'm going to go ahead and click on open invoices. And by default, it's going to apply a couple of filters to our invoices tab here within reporting. So it's automatically applying the in progress, unpaid, and overdue filter to our invoices to let us see where that number, that $7,200 is coming from. So now we can actually go through here and think about, hey, let's clean some of this stuff up. Erica was asking, how do you get to notifications on computer? You'd go to settings, click on that gear icon. Then from there, you're going to go to the notifications sub-tab. You should see it right there. It's one of the main things on that list. Let me know if you can't find it, Erica. Cool. Okay. So now that we're here in our invoices reporting page here, and we have our filters applied, we can go ahead and think about, okay, cool, let's just start cleaning some of this up, right? So Trevor Dubsado, that was probably a test project that I had. I know I don't actually need this invoice, so I can go ahead and click the three dots icon over here on the right-hand side. And I have the option to either close or delete. But let's talk a little bit about that, right? If an invoice has $0 on it, right, there's no value on it whatsoever, I can't actually close it, because what closing an invoice does in Dubsado is it applies an uncollectible balance against the open balance amount, right? So if $0 is in there, I can't apply any balance against that. It's just zero. So my only option is to delete it. And in this case, this is just a test project. I can go ahead and delete this invoice, for example, right? So go ahead and delete any invoices you don't need anymore. But like Marcus Cooper right here, I can see his invoice is overdue. Let's say this was a real client that I had created an invoice for, but maybe he had to back out for one reason or another. And I know that Marcus is not planning to come back with me, right? If that was the case, just for my records, I could go ahead and click the three dots icon and I could click close invoice. And that would apply a $5,750 uncollectible balance against his invoice. And that way then I'm not deleting it, right? It's still in the system and I can see a record of, hey, Marcus's project is still there. I can see the services he signed up for. I can see the payment plan that he had. I'm just kind of marking it as uncollectible because now I can move on. It's going to remove that value from my open invoices amount. If Marcus should ever come back and want to work with me, you have record of what he was going to pay for. And you can be like, hey, this is what your plan was back then. Do you want to pick up from there? Make your life much easier if you have anybody who comes back into your system after having been gone for a little bit of time. So I do recommend closing invoices is a good idea if you think you might work with someone in the future. But if you know, okay, better example over here, let's go back and click on that. You know that you're not working with somebody, like I said, you have the ability to decide if you want to do a closed invoice or delete an invoice. It's going to be up to you, up to your taste, depending on what the situation is. So like Rachel right here, this is another $0 invoice. I could go ahead and delete that if I wanted to. Right here, Shelly, she has a payment on there and it's in progress. So I actually don't want to touch this one. This one's not overdue. It's in progress. I want to leave this one alone. So I would actually have, $1,500 in open invoices right now. But if I went ahead and mark this as, oops, let's see, close the invoice. Just a test. Cool. So now it's marked as uncollectible. I go back to dashboard. Now I've got just that $1,500 from Shelly that's left over. So a really good way to make sure that on the financial side of things, that you're actually cleaning things up there. When you first log into Dubsado, you can actually see an accurate number of people that, of invoices that are outstanding. That way you're not like, man, $10,000. I've seen people that have a ton of open invoices and they're pulling their hair out, like, where's all this coming from? It just takes a little bit of time. End of year is a great time to do it, to go through, delete any invoices you don't need, close out any invoices that are not going to end up getting paid. Cool. All right. Desiree asked, did they get notified that their invoice is closed? No, they do not. Great question. Very good question. Let's see. Ashley asked, what if the client ends up paying through a different method, not through Dubsado? Really good question as well. So if they were to pay you through something like a check or maybe Venmo, something like that, right? You could certainly take that amount that they paid you and apply it to their Dubsado invoice. Just bear in mind that if you've already closed it, which means that you've added that uncollectible balance to it, you will have to delete the uncollectible balance just to go ahead and apply that payment again. So you might have to juggle the payments on there, but it would be really easy to do. Let's go back to Marcus's project real quick and I'll show you what I mean. So where's Marcus? There he is. So let's say that Marcus ended up paying me via Venmo, right? But I already went ahead and marked his invoice as uncollectible. This is what I would do. I'd go to the invoices tab. Now down here, right, I have this 1112 uncollectible balance. All I would do is click that three dots right there on the invoice and say delete. And that's going to go ahead and reopen the invoice, which is what this pop-up saying. At that point, Ashley, thank you. At that point, Ashley, then you could go ahead and manually apply your payment, right? If I reopen the invoice, I could go apply, say payments. And in this case, let's say it was Venmo. Or just go ahead and type in Venmo here after that. Pick other. I could type in however much he paid me, right? Let's say it was $3,000, something like that. Cool. So now I have an open invoice that kind of picked back up where I left off. Yeah, no worries, Ashley. Okay, cool. All right. Cool. Yeah, Amy, it does stay there. So the invoice remains in the system. Amy was asking what happens to the invoice when you close it? Like, does it stay in your system? And it does. So if you go to reporting invoices, you'll always be able to find all of your invoices there, and you would just be able to see on the right-hand side, although since I just unclosed that invoice, let's see here. This one's in progress. If I go ahead and say close invoice. Once again, Amy, it will stay in your invoices. It'll just be marked as uncollectible essentially, but it will be there for your records. That's kind of the whole purpose of doing that, right? Shelly asked about a question about projects. If you types a note into a project, is the client able to read that note? The answer is no. The client cannot see your notes in the project. Anything in that notes tab inside a project is just for you. It's not for the client to see. Don't have to worry about that. That's just internal. Okay. I know we're running out of time here, folks, but the last thing that I wanted to talk about as far as cleaning up your accounts, or a couple of the last things I want to talk about, is you might also have, in addition to extra invoices, right? We just talked about cleaning up those invoices, is you might have a bunch of projects sitting around that you're like, man, I don't even remember who this person was. I don't remember what happened. They kind of fell out of the flow for one reason or another. We can actually go ahead and delete or archive some projects to kind of clean up this page we're looking at right here. Since this projects page, like I always say, this is kind of our command center. This is where we're actually keeping everything organized. So it's super simple to come down and get work done. You're not have to worry about like who's going where, who's doing what. Let's clean some of that stuff up. So let me go ahead and take a look at it. I already have one in archive. Let me unarchive it just to kind of give you all an example. Go to unarchive. Perfect. So let's say, like I said, this is a test project. So let's say you might have a test project in your account that you want to get rid of. Totally fine. You can go ahead and archive it very simply. And just doing what I did right here, we can go ahead and click that down arrow and say archive, or from within the project, I could go ahead and click on it and I could click archive. Just know that if the project is a job, the invoice is going to remain open if there's an invoice on that project. If it's a lead status project that you're archiving, it's going to close that invoice. What we just talked about, it's going to apply an uncollectible balance. If there's any kind of open invoice, it will close that invoice. If it has a $0 invoice, it will actually delete it. So just keep that in mind if you're archiving things. But otherwise, there's no any kind of rules against archiving projects. You can archive any project anytime you like. And it's just going to go into that funnel here on the projects page under archived. You'll be able to find all your archived projects. It's a really good rule of thumb if you're like, hey, you know what? I just want to keep record of things. I don't like to delete things. That's kind of how I am. I'm kind of a pack rat digitally. So I want to keep track of stuff, throw it in your archive. It's not hurting anything, but it's also out from underfoot under your main jobs area. But if you're like me as well, you're like, you know what? I have a million test projects, and that's what I do too. I have a ton of test projects. You're like, I actually want to start deleting some of these. There's a couple things you should keep in mind about deleting projects in case you haven't done that in a little while. So any project that you want to delete, need to make sure that we actually go ahead and remove the contract. It will not let you delete the project if you have a contract applied. If you have any sub-agreements applied, you also need to delete that sub-agreement. In this case, I don't have one, so we're good there. We go to invoices. If I have any invoices open here, I would need to delete that invoice. But you'll notice if you have an invoice with a payment on it, you can't delete that invoice either. So you need to make sure you remove a payment, then delete your invoice, delete contracts, delete sub-agreements. At that point, then I'd be allowed to go ahead and say delete to actually fully delete it from the system. So just a little bit of housekeeping if you're going to go ahead and actually fully delete things. But keep that in mind if you're ever getting frustrated, like, I can't actually delete this project. It's probably because you either have a contract or sub-agreement, or you have an invoice or an invoice of the payment. Keep those things in mind if you want to go ahead and delete. But it can be a really good time of year to go ahead and go through your projects, take a look and make sure that there's just everything that you're seeing here is something that you actually need to do work with. And of course, there's nothing wrong at all with keeping yourself one test project. That's what I kind of like to do. If I go back to this job here, that's why this one was archived. This is just like the project I kind of dump stuff into or test stuff out. So I'm gonna go ahead and re-archive it. And the last thing I want to talk about today, I know we're just coming up on an hour here, is we can actually clean up our forms area if you like. So what we're going to do is take a look at templates and forms. If you're like a lot of users out there, you probably have a ton of forms. Believe me, I have seen many, many accounts that have a ton of forms in them. That's totally fine. Nothing wrong with that at all. But it might be a good time of year to think about cleaning this page up a little bit. So if you're like, you know what? I have some forms in here that I don't use so often anymore, but I don't want to delete them. I put a lot of time and effort into them. So what I would recommend doing is this. Like, let's take this one, for example. This is my simple package proposal. Maybe I'm like, you know what? I just never use this one anymore. It's way more simplistic than the one that I showed y'all earlier, but I don't want to delete it, right? So what you can actually do is, let's go back to our projects page. Now let's go specifically to that test project that I'm set as the client. This is just a nothing project that I'm using to test stuff out in. I can actually use any project as a form repository if I like. And the way to do that, if I go to the forms here, if I go to add new form, I already have it in here actually, this simple practice, this simple one, let me just delete it real quick. All I'm doing is in that test project or whichever project you want to use, I'm going to be adding in whichever form I want to retain. So if I go to simple package proposal, I'm going to go ahead and add it to the project. Now, once it's in the project, so long as it never gets completed, right now it's just in that need sending phase, I can actually easily go ahead and say edit, and I can go ahead and move my camera out of the way and say save as template. This will put it back into your form templates area, which means you can delete it from your form templates. I could go in there right now. Let's actually do it together. I'll show you what I mean. If I go to templates and I go to forms, I can delete this now, but I'm not actually losing it from Dubsado. I'm just going to delete it to clean up this area. Simple package design. It's gone. I'm cleaning this area up. Any forms I want to keep, I'm going to throw into that test project because it's going to hold on to them there in that forms area. I'm going to go back to projects here. Go to archived. Let's say I'm like, crap, you know what? I actually need that form back. I could find my test project. And what you might even do if you're someone who likes this idea, rename your project old forms. That way you don't actually accidentally delete it next year when you're cleaning stuff out, or in the spring sometime you're cleaning stuff out. I'm gonna say old forms. This is my old forms project. It's just gonna live in my archive status. That's what it's here for. But now I need this form back. Maybe I'm like, dang, I actually didn't mean to delete that form. I can go to edits. I can go to this drop down right here next to save form, say save as templates. Now it's back in my templates. There you go. We just need to rename that and get rid of that copy. Super straightforward to kind of send forms back and forth. A little bit of a hack right there, right? Like it can be really handy to go ahead and clean some of your forms out here, and it just use a project to kind of hold on to those. But hopefully that helps some folks out who want to hang on to some things. Ardith asks, can we do the same as old forms with workflows? Good question, Ardith. Unfortunately, there's not an option within a project workflow to save it as a template. So unfortunately not. What you might do instead is do something like this, where I don't have it on this one. You can have a blank workflow that is just like kind of a line, some kind of buffer, and you can always drag and drop your workflows around in here. So you might just kind of do some organization within your workflows area to kind of bifurcate, right? Like these are the current ones that I'm using at the top, and then I have all my old ones towards the bottom, or whatever makes the most sense to you. Good question. Okay, folks, we did actually end up taking the full hour. I managed to talk a lot. Sorry about that. But I really appreciate everyone being here. I appreciate all of your time today. If there are other questions, please throw them in the chat. We've got a couple more minutes. We'll answer them now, but I appreciate everyone's time. And thank you so much for being here. And I wish everybody a really happy holidays. I really hope everyone gets some time with their family, friends, doing the things that they love. All right. Amy was asking one more question here. Let's see, I'd love to learn more about the different lead capture forms and how you use them differently. Do you have a webinar on those? Amy, let me think about that for a minute. We only have one lead capture form of kind, but maybe you're asking a bit more about different forms and how we use those. If that's the case, send me an email afterwards. We'll chat. I can make sure you're on the same page as us and make sure we're all caught up. But thank you everyone for all of the kind words that you were saying earlier, and as well as just for being here. Jennifer was asking, how do I get more training just like this? And that's a great question because we do these just about every week. On average, I'd say once a week, usually on Wednesdays at 10. So hopefully this is a good time for y'all. But keep an eye out for any of our marketing emails. We'll have kind of our monthly newsletter that'll say which webinars we're doing on a given month. But lately, we've also been doing in-app reminders. So like you might see this pop up. And I think that's actually what Becca did while I was on stream here. Is if I go to messages, I think Becca was letting us know. Yep, right here. So that's exactly that. Jennifer, if you're someone who's like, man, I love these trainings, keep an eye out for a message like this from Becca, because she's going to let you know when we're doing this. Next Monday, we're going to be doing a webinar on how to migrate your clients to Dubsado. So hopefully, I'm guessing a lot of folks who are in here right now probably already use the system, but maybe you don't. And if you want to learn a little bit more about how to get existing clients into your system, into your Dubsado system, if you're brand new, that'd be the webinar for you. So stick around. But keep an eye out, Jennifer, for emails and these little in-app pop-ups will let you know as soon as new webinars are posted. All right. Thank you so much, everybody. Really kind words. I appreciate it. Thank you, thank you, thank you. The recording is going to be sent out. I think it's set to an hour after the webinar is done. So keep an eye out for that email. It should automatically have a link to the recording. But otherwise, I wish everyone, again, another really happy holidays. I appreciate everyone's time, and we'll catch you on the next one. Thank you so much, everybody. Bye.